Hello, my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today I have as my special guest, Jimmy Tomczak. Welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you back on the show. We had you on many, many years ago to talk about your prior company, but today we're going to talk about you as an entrepreneur. Before we jump into all that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Jimmy Tomczak. I've founded various companies and startups, and really what I'm here to do now is just help people get inspired and help people care for each other. I think that some of the very basics of what we live for get forgotten about in the entrepreneurial process, and let's get back to those basics.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up a great point. I mean, entrepreneurs, we really want to get our stuff out there to the world, but nowadays that social component is a really important part of making it all happen. It's not just about producing things in a factory and selling it to unknown people. It's about really making those connections.
I mean, that's how I got started in it, social entrepreneurship. I did this sort of crash course intro to social enterprise with the Starting Block Institute for Social Innovation back in like 2009. And since then, what people think of when they think of social entrepreneurship has really changed. But I've changed as well. So.
Well, we're going to talk about you and your entrepreneurial journey, and we're going to start it off with this first question. What was it or is it about you that created your path as an entrepreneur as opposed to going and, working in a company and being a careerist? What was it that made you go this way as opposed to that way?
Sure. So I kind of feel like it's part of who I've always been a little bit, because I've always looked for something else, a different way to do things. I mean, back when I was in high school, I was mowing lawns and I needed a website, or thought I did, and some other stuff. I bought this domain. It was jimmysjobs.com. And I still own it, but I get jokes for that all the time. Jimmy's Jobs. Yo, let me get a Jimmy job. But at the end of the day, it's like I do these different things, and my website is a platform for all these different things that I've gotten involved with over time, and it's just kind of unfolded to what I am and what I do today.
Who would have ever thought that that umbrella site could serve you well in your life as a serial entrepreneur, right?
Exactly.
You never know where something can lead you. And also, is this like in your DNA? I mean, is it just? Do you think this is in the family DNA, that this is just who you are, and the creative spirit, the creative soul, the entrepreneur?
I kind of think that, so DNA is of course like part nature versus nurture, this whole thing. It's definitely part of who you are, but it's definitely your environment, your choices that you make over time, and how that whole story unfolds. So the more that I embrace entrepreneur Jimmy, the more that I become that. But that's the neat thing about being an entrepreneur. It's not just who, like what you do. Like, that's a question that people aren't in the space might think of, like, Jimmy, what do you do? Right. And I don't know, I get kind of nervous when I answer, like, how do I answer that? Because if I say everything that I do, I just like the face just kind of melts, like I'll get a blank stare. So I'll kind of scale back and say, well, like, I just do this one thing, which is just, of course, one thing of what I do, but that's the thing, it's not necessarily who I am.
Right. And sometimes when we start labeling ourselves, it starts constricting us and making us smaller than we are.
Right, right.
I have a question to ask you about your early childhood. When you thought about growing up and like, I want to become this, like, I always wanted to be an airline pilot. I mean, I had that even through college. There's things we wanted to be. What did you want to be when you were a kid? Did you know?
I was always, like, my mom and the teachers would like always try to give me challenges, or like challenge me to do whatever it was, because I was always right there at the top, like, hey, how can I do this? How can I do more? From elementary school, I remember my 8th grade algebra teacher, he actually at one point, and it was the hardest thing because I moved during the 8th grade from a different school, like up north, very small, to like this huge John D. Pierce middle school, and I remember not having a clue what was going on in algebra, just being extremely frustrated because I missed the entire 2 or 3 weeks of the class. So if you don't know what X is, then like, what is going on right now? And eventually, he was seating the class based on grade in the class.
That's awful. Sorry, but that's terrible on any level.
But so I remember this, and I was sitting like like, it was like me, Jesse, and Nick, like, with the top grades in the class. Obviously, I kind of got what was going on after a couple weeks, and I remember that, like, well, you know, you can find a way through it. You can get the help you need, and solve for X kind of a thing. And
right.
so, you know, how does this circle back to the original question you asked? You said,
well,
you
was
know,
it in
from the beginning,
from
right?
the beginning, yeah. When you were younger, what did you want to be, kind of thing?
Yeah. I wanted to be a doctor. It's like, if you can do all this different stuff and all, you know, science and math and education and research and piece all that together. So I went to the University of Michigan. I studied neuroscience, and so
Which
I have
is fascinating.
Yeah, biological psychology and how the brain works and how all of this stuff kind of connects together. That was what I went for, and kind of in the process of being at Michigan, I realized, wow, there's a lot more to it than that. I didn't immediately declare neuroscience. I was 2 years of like undeclared. You can take whatever classes you want, and you can eventually be a doctor as long as you do this, and this, and this, and that. Well, eventually I started just taking classes that I wanted to take, and I realized that some of those were part of the program in entrepreneurship, and I got closer to graduating, and I realized that if I'm not going to
I better get a degree.
Right, well, exactly, you know, and so I declared my sophomore year, and then I also realized that, like, hey, if I'm gonna do something, like, now's the time to do it. And at that time it was like minimalist footwear was very popular, and barefooting, and also upcycling, and people talking about social enterprise and being green and all this other stuff. And so I started that company that made shoes out of billboard vinyl, and kind of took that from crazy idea to, you know, all the way to Shark Tank.
Yeah, and that was we had you actually on the show for that, and it's the billboard material. You're making shoes out of it, and also handbags, right?
Right, yep.
Women's handbags. Yep. Purse types things, and that's when we had you on the show. And Shark Tank, yeah, you made it to Shark Tank, which to me is like really cool, even though I have a lot of issues with that show. I watch it, and I've watched every one of them. I love them, but for different reasons. But can you talk a little bit about that Shark Tank experience and what you took from that has made you a better person? And really, is Mark Cuban really like he is on that show? Because I saw that picture of you with Mark Cuban on the floor with you, right? You know, with your product and everything, which was pretty awesome that you got to meet all these folks. And also, was Barbara there that day?
It was definitely, yes.
Was
it was definitely an adventure. And the funny thing about TV is when you're on TV, people suddenly believe it. It's like you could have been doing whatever you're doing for years and months and however long, but then suddenly when you're on, I mean, I was on Fox 2 News before that, and before that, you know, these different press features and Entrepreneur Magazine, and that leads to different things that eventually led to Shark Tank. And what I can legally say is that I was selected to appear and the episode was taped, but like you had already mentioned, some of that other information is already publicly available. You can just Google that. But the episode never aired because, well, for various things. I mean, that's how reality TV works sometimes.
Right, they have lots of ones they tape, right?
I think the huge takeaway is that once if you're doing what you're doing and following your passion, following a business calling or whatever it is, or just opening yourself to whatever it might be, things like that will happen. I had applied for Shark Tank like 2 or 3 times. This goes back to when I was...
And there are thousands of people. People have to understand there are thousands of people that apply.
Right. I mean,
it is not
tens
easy
of
to
thousands.
get on there.
You know, 20,000 emails a day that they get to the Shark Tank casting at yahoo.com. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, they don't read those emails.
Right.
What had happened was that the producer actually saw my article in Entrepreneur Magazine and reached out to me. And then so that was after me applying 2 times already, and so it'll happen when it's ready to happen.
Yeah.
And the biggest takeaway is that when you're you know at Sony Picture Studios with 20 cameras on you, pitching in front of billionaires that like you only read about online, like this is real, this is actually happening, even though, you know, I don't know, it just feels.
Is it surreal?
A little bit, yeah, like, you know.
Because it's like we only see it on TV. You were actually in there in the studio on that floor with a lot of scratches I noticed in the floor. I was looking at the floor.
You just got to check yourself. You got to like, am I in my body right now? Is it, you know, is this happening?
And you got to be like.
And once you do that, like, you can really do anything. So if you can pitch in front of those people, you can pitch to anybody for anything. You don't necessarily have to prepare and have it be scripted and have it be like so regimented. You can just be like, hey, I'm Jimmy, here I am.
One thing I am a little bit surprised at some people how unprepared they are about their own companies. Like they don't know their own companies. I mean, like you know your company, you are your company. Did you wear paper feet on the show?
I did,
yeah. Wearing them?
Yeah.
Okay, because I couldn't see from the picture that I was looking at. So did any of them try it on?
Yeah.
They did? That's great. That's super. Well, I mean, it's great that you made it to the show. I mean, that is quite an honor, and what a fun thing to have done in your life. And, you know, it's like,
Absolutely.
God, what else is there now?
I know, exactly. So
you can, I guess, the Dragon's Den, right? If you want to go up to Canada.
Starts in your mind. Well, it all started in Canada. I mean, when I was
you
pitching
can see
this,
you can see Mr. Wonderful again, right? Because he's on both shows.
There you go. There you go.
I hope he didn't say you're dead to me. Oh God.
No, only positive things for all those people. They're you know, they're all good people, and everybody's doing their best in whatever they do and every day. So
yeah.
it was
so you had Mark
fantastic
Cuban.
experience.
You had who else was on there? You had Mark. You had Barbara.
It was season 3, so all the standard folks on the show.
Yeah, because I know they've changed out people here and there now, so you never know like who's going to come that next week. So it's a little bit different. Another question I have for you: do you have any like rituals that you do as an entrepreneur that has really led to your success? Like, you know, we all, you know, like when it's baseball season and they all have certain things they do, like, you know, do this, you know, every day because I want the good luck, or, you know, I got a certain ritual I follow so that I can, you know, do the best job I can when I'm out on the field. What are you doing as an entrepreneur, if you have anything special that you do that's just for you, that makes a difference in your life? Because other people can maybe design things for themselves that they could do every day that would lead to success.
Yeah, I think that kind of stuff is really important. Routine, especially. Finding your own thing that works in your own daily whatever. Because as an entrepreneur, you can wake up and be like, I can wake up now, or I can go to sleep whenever, and I can do, and like everything just like, so if that.
Stand without end.
Yeah, and so that's either a really great thing, or that can be the downfall of you as an entrepreneur.
So do you think the daily routine of just getting up and how you get up and what's in your mind in the morning can make a difference?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Do you do anything with your brain and setting your mindset for the day?
I should probably do a better job of that. I must say that my rituals and routine, it's not as great as it could be. And I think that, you know, that's one of the great things about things like college or even a job if you're not an entrepreneur, because it gives you that, you know, I'm responsible for something for someone else. If I don't wake up, you know, I'm not, I'll miss class, or I'll fail this exam or anything else. Because once you're an entrepreneur, once you're in your own world doing your own thing, all of those things are set by you. And if a deadline for you, no big deal. A couple days later. Nobody cares.
Right. You gotta care.
And you gotta care. Yeah. And eventually, if you care enough, other people will care. And that's the thing. I mean, like athletes or other people that have some sort of ritual, you can talk about superstition too, you know, people that have some sort of thing like, oh, if I don't do this, you know, I gotta bless myself before this happens. Great, you know, but that, it's all in your head. And so you have to put in your head what you need to get through your day and ultimately to serve. So.
Anything that you put in your head every day, or try to put in your head every day? You
know, I've actually, I could probably talk about this for hours. I've built actually a system. I just call it the SYS. Capital SYS in my Dropbox folder, you know, with a spreadsheet. And like, I can nerd out on this stuff with spreadsheets that have to-do lists that automatically sort on like the most important thing to the day, and potentially building apps that you know, like
that we all need,
make you ignore everything else that might be happening in your day, just so you do the most important thing on your list. Because if you wake up and you do nothing else, that one thing, if you accomplish even a piece of that, it's going to be better than doing 80 other things that might not have anything to do with that.
So your high value, high priority versus low value, low priority, which are the things we usually love to do.
Exactly,
I want to do more low priority
They're easy.
things.
They feel
now.
good. I mean, it's just like being in business too. I mean, you can do. You know, are you doing something that's chasing a dollar just so you make? You know, I've done consulting. I've done other projects like that, and it's like, you know. Man, this is easy. You know, I work for a day, I make this much, or I work for a week on this big project, I make this much. Wow. And then it's done, there's nothing more there. And so it's great, you have a little bit more money to pay for gas, or, you know, a trip to wherever you're going to this conference or doing this thing, or maybe feed a bigger thing that you're building. But if it's not this big vision that you're building, at the end of the day, like, that's it.
So the important thing here is, what's the big vision? So an entrepreneur that needs the big vision. Now your vision, because I've talked to you at length on other occasions, you've got a lot of things in that vision, which is great because that's for you.
Right.
And some people have one thing in their vision. I probably have a dozen things in my vision, but having the vision is the big thing, and making sure, because you only have so much time on the planet, right? So you got to make the most of it.
Right.
So how do people, what could you suggest about somebody trying to keep, I mean, like accountability systems? What do you use as an accountability system for yourself? Like, what do you, I mean, do you have like a mentor or a couple mentors or different things, or?
Mentors are so important. If there's nothing, if there's a way that I can serve the people on this show, you know, it would be to reach out. I mean, if you Google my name's Jimmy Tomczak. If you just type in Jimmy Tomczak on Google, that's
if you can spell Tomczak, spell Tomczak for us.
It's just guess, it'll pop up. I mean, that's the magic of the internet, right? And all my information is there. The Twitter, you can reach out, and I'm happy to help, because I know that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the people that helped me get to where I'm at. And I know that where I'm going, I need other people that might not be the same people that helped me get to where I'm at today.
Right.
And so, I mean, that vision, you also mentioned that's a very important thing to me. I consider myself living in the world of ideas, and yet executing, you know, execution and doing is where it really matters. And I was giving this example to a friend just the other day when, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger came in, and this was back in the 80s, I guess, when he was just getting started, and he said, you know, this was after he was already like Mr. Universe or whatever, and a friend was interviewing him at the time, and he said, "So what's next, Arnold?" And he says, "You know, I'm going to be the next, you know, the next big actor in Hollywood, the top actor." And this is him sitting there
Which
saying,
is hard to believe,
you know,
but
what? And now, you know, that happened.
Yeah, that happened.
Okay, but you know, that was Arnold, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. So entrepreneurs, they look at Richard Branson, they look at, you know, Steve Jobs, they look at Jimmy Tomczak, and they say, wow, you know, if I only did this, that, if I only started a shoe company, and if I only got on Shark Tank, then I could have their level of success, or I could do this. But it doesn't matter. Your circumstances are different. You didn't have the challenges that I had, you know, as a you know, growing up, or you didn't have the experiences that I had, the failures that I had, the successes that I had. And so a lot of times people don't realize that. And so the vision that they're trying to build, if it's not based on who you are as a person, it's going to be very challenging. So even for myself, I'm looking out, you know, a week, you know, 6 weeks, a year, you know, month to month, 5 years, 10 years, what I want my tombstone to read, that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to what you're doing right now, because that's all that exists, is an endless present that, you know, goes now into the future and now into the past. And the past is gone. If you're trying to relive that, it's dead. It's like trying to revive a dead person. And, you know, it's
Woodstock, not going to happen. Maybe it will one day, but yeah, Woodstock is over, folks. So, yeah, I mean, and that's something that's really important, but what you do today is going to build your tomorrow. So that's why you have to have the vision and keep checking in with it all the time. And, you know, the vision, to me, is not necessarily going to change in the big scheme of things. I think things go in and out of the vision, but I think there's a certain sense or feeling that you're trying to get from that vision, whether it's spiritual freedom, personal freedom, some, you know, just a feeling inside of you from that big vision. And the way you get there will be through multiple companies, perhaps one company, one relationship, you know, something that's going to happen in your big bowl of whatever you're going to have in your life. But and also I think it's important that you pointed out that people aren't you, and they aren't these other people out there. So don't try to do what those people did to get and think you're going to come out with the same result. Never works, statistically impossible, and you are who you are. And also the fact that you brought up that nobody has the things that you went through when you grew up, and the hardships and the things that you had to deal with. Everybody's got those things, and you know, people think like, oh, these people just show up to Shark Tank and maybe they're on top of the world, or you see Mark Cuban and it looks like he's got a great life. Well, Mark Cuban has problems too. You know, we all have problems, and he maybe has a bigger kind because he's got more stuff to have more problems over. But I think it is important to keep in mind. So we got vision, you know, living in the present. What you do today is going to make your tomorrow, because the things you're doing right now. I mean, you had to do a few things to make that Shark Tank eventually pop out the system.
Yep.
You know, it had to rise up in that system thing of yours to high priority, high value, and it came up through many different things feeding it along the way. People, things, ideas, your vibration, you rising to a certain level. Yep.
It's that whole mind, body, spirit thing. I mean, you have to connect it all. And that's, I mean, I realized that when I was doing Paper Feet, when I had this, my vision then was that I wanted to create a footwear product, a shoe that would be the next fad footwear, because you know, I saw Crocs and I saw Toms and I saw Uggs, and I'm like, wow, like if they can do that, I can do that too. And it you know, and then that became this mission to like get outside and live was the underlying theme behind that, because these shoes were very thin and they encourage you to be barefoot and get outside and just run around and all that. But then even on top of that was like this thing, you know, hey, like fame, fortune, all this other stuff that comes with fad success, or, you know, success as other people define it. But it's all about your internal success and internally what you want and what you want to do and how you can serve. And so all these other things, I took all those little pieces and it led to where I'm at right now.
And you incorporated it like in your lifestyle, because you've traveled a lot, you've seen a lot of different places. You know, you've kind of, it's not like you have a company, you have a life, and it's part of, it's just who you are. You're just an organism that kind of melds to the situation, right?
We all are. We're all totally connected.
But I mean, it's like you can't compartmentalize it. Okay, now I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Oh, now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do that. You kind of have it, like you incorporate the fun of life into what you do as well.
You have to.
Which I think is different. You know, I think it's definitely something that you see in the younger entrepreneurs than you see in the older entrepreneurs. Like myself, I think there is a difference between a whole generation. Not to date myself, but you know, you can see the generational differences, and I think we have so much to learn from the younger generations about how to make things fun and incorporate that in everything that we do, because life isn't about just work. It's about work, play, all meshed together.
Absolutely.
So another question for you is, you know, it's kind of funny to ask you this. What's the single biggest mistake that you've made along the way in business? I mean, you're so young, but you've had multiple companies already. I mean, I mean, I don't even know how many companies you've had, multiple, and I know many more to come. But what single mistake have you made that's really impacted you and changed like your trajectory going forward?
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular?
I think it's probably a lot of little things that add up, maybe.
Any general theme of mistake?
Yeah, so probably doing too much.
Doing too much.
So the thing is,
ooh, I like that.
You just said like all these different companies and everything else. I mean, while I was starting Paper Feet, I was taking 20 credits and as a senior doing neuroscience at Michigan and applying to med school. Okay, and then you know, after I graduated, I was doing Paper Feet, and then I was also purchasing my first house and rehabbing that, and then working on consulting projects and other brand strategy stuff for people and naming and all this other stuff, and then traveling, and then trying to connect the right people and managing interns and all this other stuff. And so over time that just gets to be far too much. And so I was accepted to this program. It was you've maybe heard of like accelerators and incubators, things like Y Combinator or Techstars, these great resources to do whatever you want to do in entrepreneurship. Well, I had actually been through one of those already, but this one that I applied to was called Decelerate, and it was the world's first decelerator, specifically focused on focusing and slowing down. Less is more. And so I went to Bali, and I spent over a month in Southeast Asia, just kind of exploring and connecting with these people, and realizing that like, whoa,
wait a minute,
hold on a second. There's no way to do as much as you're trying to do. It's all over here, and it's for like, what's it for at the end of the day. And so I came back, and this was actually like almost a year ago today. And so it's kind of neat to look back a year and think about that kind of stuff. And the kind of things that I was thinking about was I was doing too much. So I relentlessly cut all the stuff that wasn't serving my greater vision or a higher good or a way to serve humanity. And so I got to this point where like I had a lot more time that I had never had. And I'm like, what am I doing? This feels really weird. I didn't know like what was going on anymore. And it was like frustrating because all these other things happened with some of the real estate, the rentals that I was managing at the time. It was just like issues happening with that, and I had less money coming in because I wasn't doing the consulting anymore. And it was like everything happening like at once in like the coldest, worst winter in Michigan history. And it was like, man, what can you do? So I just kept going, and you move through that, and that's what you realize. Just like I live out on the lake, and I love the ocean, like whether you're in Bali or Florida or Michigan or anywhere, California, and you realize that just like the tide, there's going to be ups and downs, and it's never permanent. You just it feels like that in the moment, and it feels like it's going to last forever, but then you're going to have this other extreme eventually, and eventually you realize that you don't necessarily need those extremes. You can just be who you are, and like
I think it's so neat that you even bring up the whole thing about going to something. You went to a new environment, even outside the country, into Bali, and spent a month there to decelerate, to get in touch with yourself, and you to me are like a full like entrepreneur. I mean, you try to live in your body. I mean, I mean, full sensory experience. You're trying to just absorb all of life and live through that, and the entrepreneurialism, the business that pops out of it is just a natural.
That's just one piece of it. You got to eat right. You got to exercise.
Right.
You got to love yourself. You got to love others. You got to find, some universal or higher power or God or whatever you want to call it. All these pieces connect. And then, if business is a way that you can serve, awesome. If it's not, then you'll find another way. So
yeah, because we all find that.
Of it.
And for some people, maybe business isn't the way. Being a great mom or a great dad or
Absolutely.
a great spouse or something. I mean, that's another way to serve. I mean,
hi, Mom.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
right.
for real,
exactly.
It's
well, believe it or not, I mean, I'd love to talk to you for like hours on end, and I a lot more questions, but we only have a few seconds left, and I'd love to, if you could pick just one thing, and there's so many things in your brain, one thing to share as your advice to entrepreneurs, what would it be? What would it be?
Breathe.
Breathe, that's a good one.
Because I just did it right there, so I'll call it to attention. Seriously, just breathe, but also get the help you need. And I'm not just talking about business help. I'm talking about if it's mental help or professional help or anything else. I mean, I got a call from a parent of my friend's dad who, he's one of my best friends and is going through some challenges right now. And if you just get the help you need, whether it's in business life, if it's a friend, if it's a mentor, if it's something spiritual, find what you need to get what you need to get done. And just breathe.
Go find it.
Let it go if it's not serving you, and go do what you need to do.
And
make
decelerate while you're breathing. All right. Thank you so much, Jimmy Tomczak.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
And we'll hopefully have you on again in the future so we can talk a little bit more about some upcoming things that you'll have for us next year.
Stay tuned, right?
Yeah, stay tuned for some exciting things. Thank you so much. If you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at www.michiganentrepreneurtv.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.